Long ago, when the lands of Britain were peaceful and prosperous, there lived in his solitude a mighty wizard called Merlin. Despite this peace, Merlin was uneasy. In a vision he'd seen a bleak and uncertain path ahead for Britain, and he vowed to stop this future from coming to pass. His quest began with King Uther, the ruler of Britain. Under King Uther Pendragon's rule, the people were content, for the most part, and war was kept at bay. Merlin's arrival and dire message was most unwelcome. Arriving in Uther's home, Tintagel Castle, Merlin spoke of Uther's kin, a son who was not yet born, a son who would be influential, wise, and would change the fortunes of Britain forever. But with these happy tidings came death and unrest. Merlin warned Uther would be dead within 2 years, leaving his son exposed to those who sought his power to take the throne for themselves. As Merlin had foretold, within 2 years the boy Arthur was born, son of King Uther and Queen Igraine. And with his birth came the death of the king, poisoned by his Saxon enemies. Under Merlin's counsel, as soon as he was born, Uther's son was whisked away from the castle to an unknown location, protected by the wizard, until the time was right to reveal his true lineage. Following the tragic death of the king, Britain and its people descended into chaos. Aristocracy wrestled for power, for their right to the crown. The lower classes saw their lands and livelihoods destroyed by marauders, thieving and fighting. And still Merlin watched and waited. At his request, the child Arthur had been taken in by Sir Ector, a British knight and trusted acquaintance. He happily raised the boy as his own, alongside his eldest son, Kay. Merlin, keeping a watchful eye over the boy, took on the role of Arthur's mentor and counsel, schooling the boy, aware of his potential and the stakes that lay ahead. Finally, the day came when Merlin knew Arthur and Britain were ready, the latter in need of stability and leadership. For his part, Arthur remained unaware of the significant role he would play in Britain's future. A short distance from Tintagel was the town of Camelford, home to a sacred forest glade, situated near the elegant grounds of their town hall. One winter morning, the townsfolk awoke to the sight of a gnarly weight of stone stationed in the centre of the glade. The strangest sight of all, though, was the great sword that protruded from its peak. At the base of the stone, intricately engraved, were the words, "Whoso pulleth out this sword from this stone is the rightful king of all England." Word soon spread of the sword in the stone, and it was only the wizard Merlin who knew the true nature and purpose of the Camelford miracle. All flocked to the glade, knights, noblemen, villagers, keen to try their luck at pulling the sword free, but despite their strength, none prevailed. The rightful king had not yet made himself known. It was decided then that a tournament was to be held in the town, a tournament to decide once and for all who would rule the land and sit atop the throne. This message was sent to all corners of Britain. Every household would learn of this unique opportunity. One such household was that of Sir Ector and his 2 sons, Kay and Arthur. Kay was now a knight, and was quick to declare his intention to participate in the tournament, with Arthur given the honour of being his squire. It was to be the first tournament for both of them, and Kay was keen to prove his worth. The day of the tournament came, and crowds flocked to the town, eager to witness what would be a significant moment in Britain's history. But disaster soon struck. In his haste and distracted state, Kay had left his sword at their inn accommodation. He implored his squire and brother to retrieve it for him. Arthur, keen to prove his own worth as squire, raced to the inn, but it was locked, emptied of all inhabitants. Everyone was at the tournament. In despair, Arthur darted about the streets of the town, his eyes searching for any glimpse of a weapon. In an instant his keen eyes fell upon the sword in the stone, sat alone in the beautiful forest glade, still waiting to be reunited with its rightful owner. Unaware of its significance, Arthur dashed forward, wrenching it clear of the stone, its weight a momentary burden. Arthur returned to his brother, out of breath and victorious. "Kay, I have a sword, a blade worthy of a champion," he cried, thrusting the sword into Kay's meaty hands. His brother silently turned the sword over, examining the smooth blade, his frown slowly turning into astonishment. "This is not—" Kay paused his words, and weaved his way through the throngs of people to his father, leaving Arthur bewildered and panicked. Had he failed his family? "Father! Father!" Kay called, locating his father next to a stall of breads and meats. "I have the sword. The king's sword. The sword from the stone." Taking Kay aside, Sir Ector grabbed the sword from his eldest son, undertaking the same close inspection, adopting the same frown. "Where did you get this? Did you pull the sword from the stone?" he asked. "Yes, father. I am the rightful king," he shouted, drawing confused glances and curiosity from the folk nearby. "You're certain, my son? You pulled the sword yourself?" Sir Ector stared closely at his son, waiting for his answer. "Arthur gave it to me," he said slowly. "I left my sword at the inn." His cheeks were flushed. He hung his head as Sir Ector searched the crowd for Arthur. By now, muttering could be heard among the sceptical townsfolk. They began to stop Ector, asking if it were true. Was this the rightful king's sword? Had Kay pulled it from the stone? What did this mean? Before long he located a bemused Arthur, demanding that he reveal where he acquired the sword. Arthur confessed what he believed to be a thievery and begged forgiveness of his father. They hurried back to the forest glade, back to the stone where Arthur was to recreate the miracle. However, it was Sir Kay who slid the sword back into place, and in a moment of jealousy and shame, attempted to retrieve it in one tug for himself. It did not budge. Sir Kay reluctantly stepped aside. Cautiously, Arthur stepped forward, and, glancing at both his father and brother, he pulled at the hilt of the great sword, freeing the blade of its stone scabbard. It was then, in turn, that Sir Ector made his own confession. He was not Arthur's father. He told of Merlin's plea to take him into his home, care for him, keep him safe, treat him as his own blood. Kneeling at Arthur's feet, he shed a tear, swearing his allegiance. After a moment's pause, Sir Kay did the same. Arthur's thoughts were a blur, and his eyes filled with overwhelming tears. Prompted by the memory of the questioning from the people, Sir Ector took Arthur by the hand and led him to the collection of knights, the town officials, those overseeing the tournament. He relayed Arthur's feat to the masses, and was met with disbelief and ridicule. Determined to root out the truth of the declaration, the townsfolk marched to the glade, placing the sword in the stone once more. Arthur readied himself, expecting to repeat his miracle, as he had done for his father and brother. But he was stopped short by a bitter official, twisted in facial expression and in mind. "Boy, I simply do not believe it. If someone as feeble as you can pull this great sword from the stone, anyone can." He raised his voice, looking into the crowd. "The people have 30 days to try their hand, show their worth. 30 days to seek out the true king," he spewed, narrowing his eyes at Arthur. And so 30 days were allowed. 30 days of growls of frustration, cries of defeat, sores on the palms of those pulling with all their might, to no avail. The sword would not be swayed. It waited, dormant, for its true master. At the close of the 30th day, Arthur stood once more, bracing against the heavy stone. Taking a deep breath, he spotted Merlin standing apart from the crowd, expectant and confident his quest was ending. Arthur pulled the sword from the stone with ease, raising it high above his head in triumph. He was the rightful king. The crowds were silent, and then they were cheering. They had their king at last. Merlin took this moment to step forward. With a hand on Arthur's shoulder, he declared to all that the boy Arthur was the true and worthy king of all England, the son of the great King Uther Pendragon. His reign would be just and fair, and that of legend. Thanks very much for listening. If you'd like to contact us or check out what we've been up to, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you enjoyed the video today, please do like it, subscribe to the channel, and ding the bell to receive notifications about new videos. See you in the next one.